Hello everyone, my name is Noshin Zainab and I welcome you all to KiwiTech's 808 workshop for startup and entrepreneurs to help them navigate the challenges of starting a business, making it sustainable and taking it to the next level. Today we have a mentor session on 17 questions that investors want answered before they'll invest in your startup and how to build a great startup team by Max Shapiro, CEO and founder at People Connect Staffing. Before we begin with our session of the day, I would like to invite Amy McCauley, VP and VC Corporate Partnerships, KiwiTech, to give a quick overview of the company. Over to you, Amy.
Here we go. So the Kiwi Tech company background. Here's a little information about it. So about Kiwi Tech, we're a global community of innovators, investors, mentors, and enterprises. We have over 500 portfolio companies, 3,000 investors within our network, and have raised $100 million in capital since beginning Kiwi Tech, the startup program. I apologize. We have 300 mentors, 100 million has been invested as technical services, and we have 100 or more networking events annually. The milestones and roadmaps. So in 2012, Kiwi Tech, our founders, scaled a content technology company, Aptara, to 5,000 people and sold it for 144 million. In 2023, the Kiwi Tech startup program was launched. In 2017, Kiwi Tech launched our demo days with over 100 companies in the portfolio. By 2019, we started the 808, launched the 808 startup series and expanded to the Middle East. In 2020 and 21, we had over 500 portfolio companies, over 100 events. We acquired Graphite Financial and launched the GMT crowdfunding services. And we have 3 more acquisitions in the pipeline. By 2024, we are on track to becoming an ecosystem of 1,000 portfolios. That's okay. So our capabilities are technology services, technical due diligence, finance and accounting, events as a service, digital marketing, and crowdfunding. Here are some of our premier events, our marquee events that we've had in the past and we continue to have, such as the Female Founders Day, the Angel Investor Panels, Hispanic Founders Panels, and the Blockchain Industry Panels. And I will kick it back off to Noshin, and good luck, Max, and thank you all for joining.
We have recently introduced a referral program at KiwiTech. This program rewards anyone who contributes to fruitful introductions to our company. Over the years, we have built this robust ecosystem of startups with the help of your trust and subsequent referrals. We realize it is time we give due credit to this trust through our referral program incentives. So if you know someone looking for tech development support to scale, join our referral program and follow the mentioned steps shown on your screen or visit our website. Contribute to our growth journey and earn incentives for your trust in us. I would now like to invite Max Shapiro, CEO and founder at People Connect Staffing. The screen is all yours, Max.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to speak to this group. I am a big fan of Kiwi Tech and what they do for startups and have done for startups for many years. I am here today to talk about how to build a great startup team and questions that investors want answered before they invest. Just by way of background, I run 2 companies, People Connect, which is a 23-year-old boutique recruiting firm focused solely on startups. We only find great people for startups. And what's unique about us is we fill any type of position at any level for any kind of startup anywhere in the United States. So if you're looking to build a great team, we can help you, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then we also run weekly pitch events. We've had a number of Kiwi Tech companies involved in our events, and they go on weekly, and that's Pitch Force, which is pitch-force.com. But let's start out talking about building a great team, what's involved in it, and why that's important. Many people say that building a great team is a key to your success, and it certainly is. Number one, this is a real simplistic statement, but you can't build a great company without great people. I mean, think about it. If you want to build an average company, hire average people. If you want to build a good company, hire good people. If you want to build a great company, you need to hire great people. And we'll learn more about who those people are during this presentation. Many people will say that people are your most important asset. Without people, without outstanding people, you're in trouble. You can have a great business idea in a huge market, but if you don't have a team to execute it, you're in trouble. VCs name team as a #1 risk factor. So if when they're looking to invest in a company, they are really checking out your team. They're checking you out as the CEO and founder, co-founder, and the executive team. If you want to focus on hiring A players, #1 under this category is hiring people who are smarter than you. You can't coach brains just because somebody's smart doesn't mean that they're going to be a great contributor on your team, but it's nice to start with that. In a farmer life, I was a chief scout in the NBA for the Phoenix Suns and the San Diego Rockets, who are now the Houston Rockets. And there's an old cliche in basketball that you can't coach height. So what does that mean? What it means is if you've got somebody 6'4" and you want him to be a 7-foot center, guess what? He's not 7 feet and he's not going to grow 8 inches. And it's the same thing. If you hire people of average intelligence, you can't expect them to suddenly become smart. So if you're focused on hiring really smart people, and don't be afraid to hire people smarter than you, you're going to do much better. We all know that there are winners and losers. A lot of people have had losses and come back and done well. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. And, one of the beautiful things, and I know there are companies from all over the world here today, one of the beautiful things about in the US and the way it works in the tech world, it's okay to have had some losses and failures, but you need some victories too. So you want to keep that in mind when you're hiring people. You need people with successful experience. Again, some failures we can live with, but show me how you've been successful most of the time. And you want to hire team players. This is really important. We hear this, don't hire any a-holes. Hire people that know how to get along with people and move the ball forward. And this is important. And there are questions that you can ask in terms of finding out whether someone's a team player and ways that you can check if what they're telling you is the truth. We at People Connect do not submit any candidates to any of our startups who do not have startup experience. So again, I'm emphasizing that you don't want to hire people that have never worked at a startup before. Those of you who are listening in are all involved, have been, are involved with startups. You know how hard you work and how long you work. There's a saying here in Silicon Valley about startups that you're working in a startup when you've worked a 40-hour week and it's lunchtime on Wednesday. So you're about half through. Not everybody's working 80 hours a week every week. But you need people that have done that before. We'll sometimes have candidates apply for a position and they say, yeah, it's true that I was at Intel for the last 25 years, but the last 2 years I was involved in a small entrepreneurial division at Intel. And that's just like a startup. No, it's not. It's not a startup. It's not the same thing because you've got this huge infrastructure around you. So you hire people with startup experience only. Okay, here's another cliche: hire slow and fire fast. Let's talk about this. It's really important that you take your time in hiring someone, that you get to know them, that you vet them, that you don't just look at one candidate and talk to her or him twice and hire them. Take your time. The hiring process and liking someone and bringing them on board in a way is sort of like if you think back to dating and dating someone who you think is absolutely fantastic, except there's 3 or 4 things they do that bug you and you think they're going to change. They never do. And so, don't settle for somebody who you like a lot, but again, there's a few things that you just don't like about them. You need to move on and find somebody else. What does fire fast mean? Fire fast means take your time. Don't take your time in firing someone. Give someone a second chance if they're not doing what they say what you want them to do. Get agreement on, yep, I can get this done in the next 3 months. Good. Let's come back and meet when those 3 months are over. And if they haven't accomplished those goals, if they haven't hit their KPIs, say goodbye to them. You're doing them a favor because they need to go someplace where they can be successful and productive. You're doing yourself a favor because you're saving time and money bringing somebody else on to your team. You want to have a structured recruitment process. So what does that mean? That means that you need to make sure that the people that you're running through that recruitment process are all going through the same process. So if you could advance the slide, please. So again, make sure all candidates go through the same process. You want a level playing field to evaluate the candidates. This is going to evolve over time. It may not happen just as soon as you start, but make sure you're treating everybody the same because you're going to be judged on fairness and equality in your hiring practices. And that is super important. You know, candidates today, it's a candidates market. Candidates can work from anywhere, and we'll talk about that later. And they've got a lot of opportunities to choose. And you need to sell them on your company in many ways. And one of the ways is by treating everybody fairly. You want to balance quality and quantity when you're reviewing candidates. So you don't want to waste your time with people that, you know, that when you look at their resume, they're not exactly the right person. So again, set the bar high at the resume review stage. Don't interview 20 people. That's something that we do at People Connect. If you're working with a recruiter, you know, what we do is we put together a list of about 150 people who we think are good candidates. We'll interview 20 people, but you'll only get to see the top 3 or 4. So don't waste time on calls with average people. If you're not sure on a call where this person's a winner, just cut your losses right there. You put in 10, 15 minutes and move on to the next better candidate. When the candidate comes on site, make sure that they meet everybody on the team. And because candidates are going to be looking at the vibe, the energy in your office, we know everybody's working virtually, but there are times when people are coming in, you know, even on a Zoom call, if that's how they're meeting others on your team, just try and pick up the energy and the feel that these companies have about you as the founder and other people on your team, how they relate to them. You want to give everybody an opportunity to spend time with the team, whether it's over lunch, coffee, virtual coffee. Make sure that you get buy-in from other people. At Google, a long time ago, and it might be like this now, if you got called in for an interview at Google, you're going to spend 10 hours there. And during those 10 hours, you're going to have a meeting, 10 one-hour meetings. And one or two of those times are, you know, you get to eat, you get to have a little lunch. But at the end of the day, if there's one person that doesn't like you, you're out. And so you need to be very selective in who you spend the time with and who you bring on, and make sure you've got buy-in from your team. So let's talk about 20 questions that you can ask during an interview, and there are many more questions. And I want to emphasize that there's follow-up questions to all these questions, but some of them are open-ended questions, and this is one I like a lot. You know, tell me a little bit about yourself from the time you entered grade school through high school. What were you involved in? Were you involved in dance or the arts or music or athletics? Tell me something about your friends, the kind of people that you hung out with. What kind of student were you? What were your subjects you were most interested in? And you know, if you're looking at their resume and you see where they went to school, ask them what other schools they were considering and why they chose the school they went to. Again, it's just a really nice open-ended question and an opportunity for you to get to know this person as a person. Why'd you leave your last job? Is it because there were a layoff, like you know, were you laid off like so many people have been in the last month or so at the big tech companies? But let's get real clear on that, and then you're going to be able, when you reference check, to find out whether you're getting answers that are truthful to all of these questions. Talk about any experience you had before you were 12 years old that impacted your life. And if you think about this, there may be things that this was there may be things that happened to you that affected you before you were 12 that you didn't realize were important. Personally, I was very tall when I was young. I'm taller now. But when I was 12 years old, I was in 6th grade. I was about 6'1". I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. An NBA team moved to St. Louis, and I was interested in basketball because I was so tall. And I picked up the phone and I said, "Can I be your water boy?" And I was the only applicant. I got the job, and I did that all the way through junior high school. And one of the players on that team liked me and took me under his wing, so to speak, and he became the general manager and coach of the San Diego Rockets about 15 years later, and hired me to be their scout. So that's something that affected me, and I know there are things that have affected others before that age. Okay, what work are you most passionate about in your current role that you'd like to continue in the next one? So this is a real good opportunity to see if there's a match between what you're looking for somebody to do and what they're passionate about. And I know there was a question about, I saw pop in the chat about my talking about questions that investors want answered, and that will be coming up shortly in the second half of my presentation today. What do your coworkers say about you? Again, dig down, because no one's going to say, well, they didn't like me or didn't think that there was anything good about me. They're going to tell you the good things, but you want to drill down and ask follow-up questions on that. Okay. What do you know about this organization? If the person you're talking to on the phone or on Zoom or in person knows very little about your company, you want to call a timeout and say, "Thanks for coming in, but you clearly don't know as much as you could have found out in 10 minutes on the internet. So you're wasting my time. Thanks and good luck." Why do you want to work here? Tell me, sell yourself to me, regardless of whether English is your first language, regardless of the type of job that you're doing. If you're a programmer, it doesn't mean that you can't sell me on why I should hire you. I think it's important that people are learning all the time. So ask people about what they're learning. What'd you learn last week? And is there any continuing education programs that you're involved in? You part of any groups that in your area of expertise that you're learning from? What are 5 words that best describe you? Another, this is sort of a stock question, but it's good. You'll get some interesting answers, and you can drill down on each of those 5 points. Why do you feel you're a fit for this position? So what is it that, in terms of what we're looking for and what you want to do, that makes you feel this is a match and that this would be a great place for you? What kind of salary do you need? It's great if in an initial call you can get a range. A lot of candidates don't want to do that. In California, a law was enacted last January that says you cannot ask somebody how much money they're making. The reason for that is, and here's an example, like in the teaching world, sometimes a teacher would have a position in a city, and that position in that school district paid $65,000, and they're applying for a job in another school district, maybe with more money, where people are making $95,000 for the same job. And the hiring manager might say, well, you were making $65,000 in your last position. We can pay you $70,000. Well, you get a $5,000 raise, yeah, but you're still making $25,000 less than people doing the same thing. So that's not right, and that's why the state of California enacted that. And I know there are other states as well. Tell me about times that you were a team player and what that was like for you. You want people that have been on teams. A lot of companies have found that athletes are great employees because they've had to be on a team before. They've had to sacrifice. They've got discipline. They work hard. And it's not just athletic team players you're talking about. You're asking them about groups that they were involved with people that they supervised or were supervised by, and what role that they played on that team. You want to know how long the person's planning on being with you. And, if someone says, they expect to be there a couple of years, you don't want to have to replace them in 2 years. You want somebody who's who's saying, hey, I think this is the right position, and I want to be in a position where I never leave. You want to find out about people's feelings, and you can find out quickly by asking this question: What was it like when you fired somebody? How did it make you feel? If there's not some empathy, you might have the wrong person. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker, and how was it resolved? Maybe there's 2 or 3 situations where you're in conflict with someone you were working with, and you want to flesh that out. If you had enough money to retire now, what would you do? You're not hiring somebody who's planning to retire in a year or 2, but another way you can find out about their interests, hobbies, things that they're doing when they're not at work. Have you ever been asked to leave a position, and why? And what was the situation? And if it's someone that's job hopping and every year or 2 they've moved around and it was always somebody else's fault, that's a problem. I mean, there are a lot of people moving around today, a lot more so than there were 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. But you want somewhere along the line for that person to have had a 5 or 6 year stint somewhere. What are you hoping to learn or get exposure to in your next role? Again, you want people that want to be challenged, so you want to know what it is that they're looking for and what they're interested in, what might challenge them in this new position. Tell me something unique about yourself. Again, it's an open-ended kind of question that you're going to learn more about the candidate. And lastly, what's your dream job? And hopefully that dream job matches up with the position that you have. Like I said, there are many more questions you can ask. You're not going to ask all of these, but hopefully these give you some ideas of questions you might use in the interview process. So let's talk about the Great Resignation and what's happened, during COVID to the entire job market. It's been turned upside down. About 90% of the searches that we undertake at People Connect, the companies are okay. The hiring manager, CEO, is okay with people working virtually. In a third of the cases, that CEO, that founder, will say, I can't believe I'm saying this. I never would have thought a year ago that it would be okay for me to have somebody working virtually. But in almost all cases, it is. Now, if this is a lab and you need somebody to be the director of the lab, clearly they need to be there. But it's certainly a plus for candidates to be able to work anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, more so than the country. Give an example. We've got 2 young guys who have started a company and now realize that they need a gray-haired CEO to help them raise money and raise the business. And one of our recruiters was on the phone having a call with the co-founder, with both the founder and the co-founder. And during the call, the founder was driving from Cleveland to Mexico City with his fiance, where he was going to live in Mexico City, and he could be in Mexico City and still run his business that's based in the Midwest. So that's a great thing, but it has changed a lot. And I think if you're not open to people working virtually, you need to be. So just briefly, I told you a little bit about what we do at People Connect. One point I want to stress is that we are a small boutique firm, very experienced. The least experienced person on our team has been with us for 11 years and has 21 years in the recruiting business. The work we do, we call Contingency Plus. We're doing the same process that recruiting firms that retain recruiting firms are using. A retain recruiting model means that you're going to pay upfront for all of the you're guaranteed to pay whether or not somebody hires one of your candidates. That what we do at People Connect is we're old school, and if we make a match and you hire one of our people, we get paid, and if not, then nothing gained, nothing lost. So I hope we can help you with that on the team building side. Again, you can't build a great company without great people. Here's my contact info. If you're interested, would love to talk to you about how we work. And now let's talk about what comes before building that team, and that's raising money. And the reason that this talk is titled questions that investors want answered before they'll invest is often, entrepreneurs are not focused on that. You're focused on what you're doing, the raise that you're making, but you need to think, if you're pitching and I'm the investor, I'm catching, you need to think about me and what's important to me. And this will be apparent as we go through this presentation. So first and foremost, we want to know, what is the why? Why are you doing this business? And if it's just like, three of us were sitting around a bar and we had this great idea where you could save 17 seconds switching between TikTok and Instagram, investors aren't going to be that interested in that. But if there's a real purpose behind what you're doing, a company has a bottom line, and it's clear that you've got domain expertise, then you're going to get my attention. Next, let's talk about the problem that you're solving. Often, people in doing presentations spend too much time talking about the problem and the solution. You need to be real clear and real succinct and make sure that everybody understands the problem, which shouldn't be that hard to describe. And then the solution needs to be very, very clear and something that, your grandmother could understand. If you're a technical person and you're going to spend 3 minutes talking about what the solution is, you need to shorten that and be succinct about it, because most investors know what the problems are. They're going to be interested in your solution. It's got to be a strong one, but don't, spend a third or fourth of your time when you're presenting in public, coming up with a solution. Who's the team? And investors are betting on the jockey or the jockeys, founder, co-founder. You need to be able to sell them on who you are, why you've got the domain expertise, and when there's a room of people who are expert in your field, you know more than anything, than anybody else about that. So team is really, really, really important. In our pitch force events, one of our investors, when we ask the investors to introduce themselves and talk about what's the most important factor when they decide to invest in a startup, he says, team, team, team. Again, you need great people. You need people who are experienced. You need to make it really clear how your company is going to make money. And this gets overlooked a lot. Talk about what your revenue model is, whether it's a SaaS model, whatever it might be. But if you've got a product and it's costing you 92 cents to produce, and you can only sell it for $1, that's not something I'm going to be interested in. I want to make money. I want you to convince me on how your company is going to make money. You got to play in a big market if you're looking for money from angels or VCs. You could have a 5-year projection that shows at the end of the 5th year, you're going to be doing $13 million in revenue and $2 million in EBITDA. And that'd be could be a really nice lifestyle business, but it's not a business that someone's going to invest in. And so there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, when you have investors, you're going to have investor issues. If you've got a business that becomes a cash cow for you and you don't need to take money from outside investors, that's great. But if the market is really big, that's what investors are looking for, and you can convince me how you can get a share of that, $2 billion market and what your TAM and SAM are, et cetera, then there's something that's going to hold my interest. You need to know who your competitors are, and you got to convince me how you're better than them. We often have on our pitch force events, our panelists, investor panelists, are Googling your competition while you're speaking. And they might ask you if you know about this competitor. And if you don't, it doesn't look too good. So let people know, here's the competitors and here's how we're going to beat them. It's a key point. In any type of presentation, whether it's a written presentation or a verbal presentation. What are the barriers to entry? Do you have any IP? Is IP necessary? There are a lot more businesses today that don't have barriers, and it becomes a land grab. You've got to get there quickly to get market share. If you've got something that's protectable and you got your patents, that they have a lot of value. So we just ran across a company that's trying to raise money from angels and VCs. And while they're working on that, they found out that they can get a loan using their extensive IP portfolio as collateral. So IP can be important, but you shouldn't, bet the store on it. Be real clear on what your go-to-market strategy is. Saying you're reaching out to influencers and you're going to do SEO, and come on, no, you need more than that. You need particulars, and you need to be able to show that there's somebody on your team who's thought about this strategy, and you can convince me how it's going to work. What's your exit strategy? How long before I make money on my investment, and what kind of return can I expect? This is really key. It's amazing to me how many companies that are pitching for money are not thinking about their exit strategy. What we often say on number 10 here, and one of our points in the template that we give people to pitch, is WIIFM. Stands for what's in it for me. Again, you're the pitcher, I'm the catcher. Tell me how you're going to exit, when you're going to exit, who the potential acquirers might be. That's all really important. Do you know when your company is going to be acquired? No. Do you need to have a 5-year projection that shows me that if all the stars align and if you do the right blocking and tackling, you've got a shot at it? Absolutely. And those need to be big goals, but they need to be realistic. I heard a guy do a pitch before COVID who said that his company in the 5th year was going to be doing $2 billion. And then he paused and he looked around the room and he said, and these are very conservative numbers. It's like, dude, come on, you're not going to do $2 billion in your 5th year, and don't insult me. I may have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night, and I'm not stupid. So don't insult people's intelligence by saying you're going to do 2 billion or a billion or 10 billion in 5 years. Have a big goal, but you need to be able to defend it, and it needs to be optimistically realistic. Talk about your relationship with the people that might buy your company, if you have it. We've had companies pitch, really early stage companies, pre-revenue, that have been reached out to by potential acquirers already. They don't want to sell because it's too early and they're not going to get enough money for it. But having ongoing discussions with companies that might acquire you and knowing those people is a key, and it takes some of the risk out for investors. It's really important that I know, as a potential investor in your company, how your investors did in your last company, assuming that this isn't your first rodeo. And if you had 9 investors and 8 of them are investing, and unfortunately the 9th passed away, or she or he would have invested. So knowing that, and knowing that they're investing in this company is very, very important. How much money are you raising? Be real clear about this. I mean, sometimes companies saying, well, we're raising between 500 and 750. No, I don't want 2 numbers. I don't want a range. I want an exact number. And if you're thinking about 500, you might be better off raising $1 million, but certainly no less than 750. And be real clear on your ask. We sometimes have people pitch at our weekly Pitch Force events who don't even know, what their cap is. They're doing, are you doing a price around a convertible note? We're doing a convertible note with a 8% interest and a 20% discount. And then they stop. Yeah, but what's the cap? I need to know the cap as an investor. The lower the cap, the better off I am. The higher the cap, the better off you are. And you need to be realistic. If I'm looking at investing at one of 3 companies and they're all about the same at the same place on the track, and in terms of customers, in terms of product, and 2 of them have their pre-money valuation at $6 million and another one is 13, It's like, guess which one I'm investing in. It's not going to be yours. So you need to be realistic. If you don't know, there's nothing wrong in saying, we're raising $4 million today on a convertible note. We haven't set the terms yet, and this is you talking to the investors. What we're trying to do as entrepreneurs is create a win-win for you as investors and for us. Be sure and tell me how you're going to use the money. What are you spending it on? Having a pie chart that shows that 70% is going to be used for engineering and 30% is going to be used for marketing, whatever that might be. It's a really good way to get the idea across that, you put time into this and here's where the money's going to be spent. The money can't be spent on repaying you for all the time that you put in the business that you didn't get compensated for, or the money that you invested that you'd like to get out. No, it needs to go to adding fuel to the fire, to helping you further your development. So be real clear about what the money is going to be used for. And again, displaying that in a pie chart is a real easy way to do it. How long do you see yourself staying on as CEO? If you say, I'm going to be CEO for this company forever, that's not the right answer. If you're going to say, I can see myself doing this for a year or two, and then somebody else needs to take over, that's not the right answer either. You need to be committed to growing the business. And you also need to be smart enough to know that maybe you're taking this business from 0 to 30 million, and you've never taken a business from 30 million to 400 million. You need to bring somebody else in to be that CEO. We did several searches for a company, very successful company, that raised their B round of $10 million from Bain Capital in Boston. And a couple of weeks later, the CEO got an email from the Bain people saying, we're replacing you as CEO, and here's a couple of people who we think would do a great job. And when he forwarded that letter to me, and I called him and I said, Joe, they can't do this to you. This is crazy. This is your business. And Joe said, calm down, Max. Just listen to this. I have never taken a business from the 20 million that we're at now up to 200 million. Either of these two candidates can do that. And if one of them, we bring one of them in, my equity is going to be worth more with somebody else running the business other than me. And I can go back to doing what I do best, which is creating companies and taking them to about 20 million. That was a smart CEO, and everybody did well in that deal, by the way. You need to convince me on why I should invest in you and your business. You need to be likable. You need to be coachable. You need to be upfront. You can't try and just slide something through or not be completely honest about something. If you get caught in even a half lie, you're toast. People aren't going to invest in you. So be upfront. Let people know their challenges. Let them know what they are, and convince me why I'm going to make money by investing in your company. Last question. Be upfront with people about issues that you have. Everybody that gets up at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 5:30 when they're trying to sleep to 7 with something on their mind pertaining to their business, it's an issue, and you're worried about it. It's fine to let investors know, not that you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning worrying, but that here's challenges that you see, and here's ways that we think we can overcome those challenges. Again, be upfront with the investors. Don't try and BS them. Make sure you do a great job of selling yourself, and only take money from people that you really like. Like I said earlier in the talk about building a great team, it's like dating. You need to really like the investors that are going to be investing in you, because they're not going to invest in you and then disappear. They're going to make sure that you're doing what you said you're going to do. So you want those investors to be people that are good people, that are good guys and good gals. And one way of checking that out is to talk to the people that run their portfolio companies to see what they think, what it's like to work with these VCs. So if hopefully you've gotten some value out of this. I've enjoyed it. I know there's some questions that may be coming up and happy to answer those. But before we go there, again, Pitch Force is the other thing that we do. We run this event every week online. We're now in our 10th year, coming up on our 3rd year of doing it virtually with companies from all over the world, presenting to investors. Companies seeking their seed round, pitching to angel investors, companies seeking their A round, pitching to VCs. We have some that are industry specific, that are life science only, where companies looking for their seed or their A are pitching to angels and VCs. We're doing our first Pitch Force UK tomorrow, and we've got companies coming from not only the UK but all over Europe, and a couple of companies from EMEA as well. If anybody's outside of the States and wants to pitch there, just please get in touch with me, and we'd love to consider you to be involved in a Pitch Force event. And I'll turn it back to you, Nasheen. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. That was a great presentation. Let's give our audience members a couple of seconds to send in their questions. Why should startups consider using a recruiter?
It's a good question. You know what? Here's what we do. Let me tell you about the process, and then let me think about if this is something you want to do on your own. So we put together a list of 150 candidates, not just a few people that are applying online. We start with old-fashioned headhunting, which is what recruiters used to have to do before the internet. We reach out to people at companies and see if we can poach them away. That's number one. Number two is we have a database of over 80,000 people. This is our 23rd year in business. There are great candidates there. Number three source is, yeah, we're on the internet. Everybody has to be, but we're not just on 1 or 2 sites. We're on 135 different job boards and discussion groups. We've got a list of 150 candidates. They're not all going to be great, but my team goes through, looks at all the resumes, picks the top 20 people, and from that, they present 3 candidates to our clients within 4 weeks, usually a little earlier. If the right candidate isn't in there, we're going to continue working to find that great person for you. And then during the process, we set the interviews up for you. And when you find somebody you like, before you hire them, we pay for a criminal background check. We check college degrees and we check references, and we guarantee our people for 3 months. If a person starts sometime in the first 90 days, they want to leave, you want them to leave, we replace them at no charge. So just like, you know, we're professionals. We've been doing this for 23 years, as I said. You know, if you're setting up a company, you're not going on Zoom to find Zoom info or whatever to find a lawyer. You know, you're not going to have a lawyer do something, you know, that using just somebody that you don't know. You need people to do this kind of work, experts that do this kind of work. The other thing is the time that you're spending going through a process of recruiting, which I can guarantee you will not be as thorough as ours, is time that you're not spending on what you need to do to fundraise, to make sure your team is doing what they're doing. So, hey, if you know somebody and you've checked them out and you think this person is great, you know, it might work, but our universe is much, much bigger. Like I said, 150 candidates that we're coming up with through old-fashioned headhunting and our huge database and being on about 135 different job boards and discussion groups.
All right. Once funding comes in, where is the first place to focus?
You got to build your team. We found a chief growth officer for a company in New York that was doing $30 million in sales, a software company, and had never taken any outside funding. 2 brothers, one of whom dropped out of Harvard to start this business, and they put some of their own money in. They'd never had funding. And then they got a $40 million A round from outside investors at like a $200 million valuation. So all of a sudden their company's worth a hell of a lot of money. They just took in all this money. And you think that they might take some time off to celebrate. And they said, no, we have to build a great team. These people invested in us. We owe them the best effort, finding the best people we can, so they can make a lot of money on their investment and we can make money on ours. So number one, you got to have the funding. Once you got the funding, you got to build a great team.
All right. What are the most important points to cover in a quick pitch?
I think if you use our questions that I put up, that's great. If you reach out to us, we can send you our template on how to deliver a 60-minute elevator pitch and a 4-minute PowerPoint. And people say, I can't describe my business in a minute. And we're sending you a template, which starts with what is the why, the problem, the solution, the team, ends up with how am I going to make money as an investor and how much money am I looking for? You can all cover that all in 60 seconds. And we give you a video. You get to watch a video of somebody that did it. Same thing with a 4-minute pitch. God, I can't cover everything in 4 minutes. What we say is sit down, write out 600 words because we speak about 150 words a minute. And in those 600 words, cover these points. And again, here's an example of a 4-minute PowerPoint with the slides on somebody who just killed it. And we'd be happy to share that with anybody. Just reach out to me and we'll get you a copy of our presenter guidelines for pitch course.
All right, Max, thank you for the presentation and the great responses. And with that, I would like to thank our mentor and guests for joining us today, and we'll be back soon with our more workshops. Also, apart from the workshops, we have more upcoming events. You can check out our KiwiTech website for the same. Do join us, and we would love to host you on those events as well. Thank you and have a great day.